Hello and welcome to the third episode of Africa Tech by Adansonia. My name is James Henry and I will be your host. My guest today is Greg Chen. Greg is the co founder of Mobiz, an AI powered personalized marketing tech company. Mobiz has been incredibly successful in South Africa and is now expanding abroad. Greg and I discuss what it takes to be successful for an African tech company moving into the US and the lessons he's learned along the way. Join us as we uncover what it takes to be successful for African entrepreneurs looking to move into the US. Greg, thank you very much for joining me on Africa Tech by Adansonia.
Thank you for having me.
Greg, I think if we could start off, please, you can give us a bit of your background and exactly what Mobiz is.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'm Greg Chen, the CEO co-founder of Mobiz. I was born in Taiwan but raised in South Africa. Grew up in Natal, but properly educated in Cape Town. Yeah, and it's a long journey to Mobiz. But Mobiz is a mobile experience data experience platform. It helps drive personalization from your SMS text marketing, A2P text marketing, all the way to your personalized landing pages. So very much in the MarTech SaaS space. And we have to say that we in both the South Africa and the US market took a while for us to get in the US. But a lot of learnings from South Africa. Initially, me and my co-founder have been in mobile tech for a couple of decades now, for almost two decades now. We did a whole bunch of stuff, starting from back in the early Java days, Java handsets. So that was the early smartphone. They call it feature phone now, but back in those days they called it smartphones. And we
Giving
were
away
we
your
were
age.
we were yeah, 100%. Yeah, they say I look 60, but I promise I'm not a day over 45. Um, the yeah the app days, and we did a few, well, the one we start off with instant messenger, and it was very much I think 3 4 years before WhatsApp launched, and we had very similar features in terms of just read receipts and group messaging and all that stuff. But we launched in Cape Town, and I think back then there was one or two VCs around, didn't believe in instant messaging, and everybody was focused on social media. We also launched around the same time, or maybe just after Mixit, and Mixit was huge. I don't know if you remember Mixit.
I
Mixer
do.
was huge. It blended really good social elements with instant messaging, and I think that's what people are looking for. Is that Facebook was blowing up, and that's what people invested in that. So we very quickly pivoted into other form of content, provisioning and exchange, and we did several B2B to C projects. And one of them took off with a marketing partner pretty well. We got about 500,000 subscribers within 4 months in South Africa. And we didn't make the big money, but it was sufficient for us to kind of seed fund what we eventually launched with Mobiz. But it's through this application backend content space that we learned that the consumers, the way they engage versus what marketers wanted them to engage, it was a huge gap. You had digital marketers using tools made in Silicon Valley, and really what the customer is seeing, engaging with, is SMS and USSD in South Africa. But on the other end, they're trying to push them apps, and I think it's not as bad now, but I remember like the early in the late 20s, and the early the probably the beginning of the smartphone era, 2020, 2009, 2010 to 2012, everyone was pushing apps. But the reality was that, when we looked at our data, we had 500,000 subscribers, but only 10% of them downloaded the app, was interacting with the services. And so So we wanted to really meet them where they are, and that's why we thought, how do we get the most obvious channel that they engage with, which is SMS, but with everything that the digital marketers wanted to achieve in terms of personalization, in terms of rich content, in terms of dynamic call to action. Um, and then one furthermore in South Africa is the data barrier, but I'll get into that. But coming together, we thought, okay, well, let's take the channel, the SMS channel, and then let's enrich it, right? And you see people starting to do it then, but a lot more now is, well, how they enrich it is just putting a link in there that drives to a product page. And so we didn't find that to be a very useful user experience. That was an easy user experience. That wasn't very, very useful because you're driving everybody to the same engagement routes. Was very, very different to email. And email, you got an email, and the email was, immediate rich content in front of you. Some of it were personalized. So how do you replicate that in an SMS environment? And that's basically how we created Mobiz. And in South Africa, we were still quite naive, and we wanted to go after the SMB space. But the SMB space in South Africa is tricky, right? People didn't really think about marketing. Everybody was just surviving, right? And so at the same time, they didn't have a lot of contact database. They didn't keep numbers. So we very quickly, even though we created an SMB tool, we quickly pivoted into enterprise, most founder-led enterprise selling. And so I went out and knocked on doors. I had resale partners help me, reach people, and we started talking to people with the database, the in the home choices and Lewis Group and the multi choices of the world. And we realized that they actually had the need for what we were providing, even more so than SMBs. And so that's kind of where that's kind of where we started. Yeah, so that's kind of the
Great.
the inception of Mobiz.
Mhm. And Greg, we first met. I think it was probably 2 years ago. We had a chat, and obviously your growth in South Africa has been incredible. You really have grown the company to something incredibly impressive over a short period of time. And you touched on it earlier. You then decided to go into the US. What made you choose the US as a targeted market as opposed to potentially other emerging markets similar to South Africa?
So yeah, so it's very kind of you to say that we had good growth in the SA over the past couple of years. But I think funny enough, we had the most growth kind of just pre-COVID during getting into to COVID. And the reason being is exactly as I said. My focus went into the US. And the reason why I wanted to go into US was, there's a multitude of things. I mean, the smart answer that I give other people would be that, I look at the market opportunity there. It's Google was trying to launch RCS, which is another very similar to SMS channel but with rich content. They couldn't get it up and running because Apple didn't want to play ball. Actually, until this year, the Europeans forced Apple to play ball with RCS. But back then they were trying to create something really rich in the text marketing space, and they couldn't do it. And while here we were doing it with just regular standard SMSs. So we thought that might be a really good way to look at the market. And then once we stepped in a little bit, we realized there's actually another level of opportunities because the compliance level for text marketing is extremely stringent that side of the world. That means every single person that you text to from a business perspective needs to have an opt-in to to the brand. Now, not just so if a person become a customer, you can't text them, or you can't just text them. Still, even whether they're your customer or not, you still need to get their consent. And the punishment was severe. It was $500 per person per text. So no one screwed around, and because of that, no one really looked at text marketing in terms of marketing space really seriously up until I would say a year or two before COVID, because it was a lot easier to do mass marketing over email and other channels, and in the social media space compared to text marketing. But because those space became so inundated, I realized that if you find a way to get clients to opt in, then that is the best space because you're fishing where the fish are, right? These people want to actually listen to you. And I think this is why you kind of see this transition that, I would say pre-COVID, you go on any website, especially e-commerce website, they will want you to opt in with email. But now most of it want you to opt in with your mobile number, right? And so there was a shift, and we saw that kind of shift early on. So I thought that would be a great opportunity for us to jump in now, since when we in South Africa we were trying to really innovate on text marketing to make it personalized so that you break through the noise of text marketing in South Africa, where in the US that noise wasn't really much there. So they had, it's very, very much a lovely place to actually start what we to what we're doing. So again, that would be the educated answer. But I think majority, but the main reason was that I was just feeling slightly depressed with the SA enterprise space. You would you would call it commercial politics or whatever it is. And a lot of times you were obviously providing a lot better products. Yet there were these things that you just couldn't see why you couldn't either sell into a space, or even if you prove a successful pilots, there were other elements that at play, that relationships that you didn't have, that wouldn't get you the contract. Now inversely, once you get the contracts, you'll see that even if you were delivering a service that something had broken down and obviously impacted customers, and obviously that hadn't really happened a lot in our environment, but I do see that it's the decision making isn't really about return on investments. I mean, that always factors in, but it wasn't quick, right? So if you had something obviously better, it still took you a long time to sell into a customer. Um, and likewise, if somebody had a better solution, but I had a relationship with the customer, I could defend that, right? And so to me, that I don't see that's a very healthy environment for SaaS, because you're never getting the right product market fit. So because at the end of the day, relationship matter more than products. And I have engineering background. And it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel right. So I think that was the thing where you always hear that the US market is super competitive, but the clients make decision quickly based on return on investment, based on value that they can create. If they like you, they'll buy. If they don't like you, they'll churn. And so I really want to be in that space. And I think that's the main driver of really looking at the US market. Obviously, it's a big market as well. Um, but you don't realize how big it is until you're in it, right? Because before then, you will think South Africa is a big market compared to Botswana, for example, right? Yeah. So that's kind of a couple of reasons why we look at the US.
That leads me on to my next question. We've seen quite a few African tech startups try and break into the US, primarily because of the size of the market, like you mentioned. And it's obviously an incredible, difficult jump to come from Africa and break into the US because, as you mentioned, the US is so big. Where do you start? You start in Texas, in New York, in California, somewhere in the middle. It's such a big place. So, how did you make the decision on where to get going in the US? And what are the key lessons you learned in getting established there? Because that's an incredibly difficult thing to do.
I think that so I didn't really think geographically. And I know the theory, right? You say that, hey, listen, Texas is X amount of times bigger than South Africa. You should just start there, right? Or whether this is New York or California, right? Start there and looking at selling locally. I never really understood that concept. I appreciate it. I understand academically what what it means, but I didn't feel it because I thought software. Like it's why do you need to sell things differently? Obviously, knowing a little bit more now, I do appreciate that a bit more. But I still think that because I'm in an easier space that I'm in marketing technology. Um, and so I would say finding a right time zone is probably more effective than finding a right finding the right space simply because you have your salespeople that need to sell into those spaces. But again, the US left to right is a 3 hour difference, not night and day difference. So yeah, I think it's okay wherever wherever I landed. So I didn't really think about it geographically from a go-to-market perspective. However, I mean, I was in the Optimus Accelerator that's based in the San Francisco Bay Area. So I always thought that okay, well, that's 2020. It just beginning of COVID. You would think that you would go there, and then and the US had lockdowns. So I didn't actually end up getting into San Francisco. We did the whole program remote, um, and then you kind of realize that things are getting quite expensive in the US. They're always expensive, and people kind of leaving the Bay Area. So I'd rather be at a place where I was, time zone friendlier than the South Africa, and that's why I end up being in the East Coast and in Atlanta, where there is technically over there is 3 direct flights a week. Not that I travel every week, but you kind of these things kind of add up. Um, and so that's kind of the consideration, in terms of geographically, it wasn't really on go to market. It was more on just simplicity of things. Um, and then in terms of, kind of the key lessons is that, we have our US council. They deal with a lot of startups, and a lot of startups are coming from foreign land, and as I say, there's a lot of dead bodies on the road, unfortunately. And I think one of the things that I was naive to, and I think that affects a lot of people, is that when you have product market fit in one country, I thought that I had a good business, a good lifestyle business in South Africa. I mean, I would never really say that we were very startup at that stage because, we're not growing at multiple X's, and we didn't deploy any capital in the market. So we had a good lifestyle business, and having product market fit in terms of a lifestyle business and operational means in a lifestyle business and where it was very much founder-led sales. So really there wasn't a much a scalable sales engine to start off with. But you don't see those things at the beginning. You just think that I have a product that can sell, and therefore, and I'll go into big market, it must be able to sell. Right. And I think that's a big mistake on my end. And the VCs knows it. When I try to really, out of the demo, they try to raise capital in the US. They basically very politely laugh me off and say, "Well, once you get some US traction, right, and then we'll talk." And I remember the very first couple of calls. Okay, but I do have. I mean, if I can do it in South Africa, surely I can do it here. They don't think so, and as they should. And I think that that making a decision thinking that okay, then with some tweaks in the product we can make it work. I think that's a very dangerous assumption. I think you have to every country have different commercial needs, and with different commercial needs in the way that customers sell. Yeah, I'm purely talking B2B here, right? And customer sell, there are going to be ways that you need to engage with them. And one of the key lessons that I learned is that you need to sell what the customers are willing to buy, right? You can't. I think I mentioned this to you before. You can't go in thinking that's my rocket ship right here. You need to buy my rocket ship, and all they really want to do is go shopping quicker. They don't need a rocket ship to go shopping, to go grocery shopping quicker. So I will say that you need to park that assumption. You do a lot of customer work, um, and customer work could mean a whole bunch of things. But I think the best way to do customer work in the US would be to sell, right? And and to sell meaning that you have to start again, right? You have to. Sorry, I see. I don't know why my computer gives me that thing.
No,
So
that's
a
all right.
funny
Yeah.
gesture. So you gotta sell, and so you have to do the work again. So it's kind of your founder to go out there. You need to go and talk to customers, and I will say that try and get a US sales partner, and I said partner earlier, whether this is a general manager or VP of revenue or sales manager to really guide you and work with you in it is going to be the best approach.
Yeah. Yeah, we've obviously been involved with a few companies that have left South African shores and moved into the US, and I think I completely agree with you. I think having someone that has a bit of experience on the ground that can maybe make a few initial introductions, on where to target, who to target, what the target market actually wants from you is incredibly important. So I think it is definitely a need to figure out what you're going to be selling before you arrive there. And like you say, the US VCs are very different to the South African counterparts. Um, Having said that, if there was a new South African tech company or African tech company that wants to follow in your footsteps, would there be any two or three guidelines that you would give them to try and make the process easier, to try and get them up and running quicker, um, or any bits of advice that would make it simpler for them to get going in the US?
Yeah, I mean, if you're new, right? If you know a business that's been around for 5, 6 years already, tens of millions of revenue, then it's easy. It's set up the corporate structure as soon as you can in the US, right? You want to go to the US, set it up there straight away. Because once you have revenue, it gets complicated with tax, right? If you have significant revenue, it gets complicated with tax. So set up the corporate structure. Without corporate structure, um, it's not just about doing business difficult. It just really is, hiring is going to be difficult. So if you make hiring difficult, the go-to-market is going to be difficult. And if you don't have your structure clean and set up, you're not going to be able to raise capital, whether this is in equity or debt. And I say debt because I think debt is quite a prevalent thing now. I think debt used to be quite a taboo word in VC world a few years back, but I think it's completely changed at the moment. And so you won't be able to raise equity or raise debt. And so have that structure set up with even before you know how you're going to sell. Just have that sort of. It will be cheaper to do it like that. If you want to talk to a bunch of lawyers, they will take your money. You want, hope, you want to talk to advisors, they will take your money. But there are online sites that can get it done for a couple $100. Just do that. And have that going. And then yeah, I mean, just I think there's no to me. I think a lot of software companies, looking at the US and saying that let's get some feedback through paid marketing, right? To get, this, it's a yeah, we always think about product-led growth, and so you end up make a lot of assumptions on how your product can go to market, and that's a lot of money and time. And then once you get feedback, and if you're lucky enough to get really helpful feedback, you realize you just waste a lot of time. You got to break up everything and do it all over again. And I think one of the mistakes that we made was spending hundreds of thousands of dollars just on paid marketing, just trying to get feedback where you could probably get it by over a few phone calls, right? So you kind of see, hey, I want to see where does, you're looking at all these analytics, from Hotjar to everything. Oh, where are the heat maps and all that stuff, and then you try to interpret those things, but you're interpreting it from a South African lens, and it just not doesn't work out, right? And I'm spending a lot of money getting data that's not specifically useful. So I would say that, be on the ground. And I don't mean be on the ground as in, knocking on doors. If that works for your service, great, do it. But I would say that, I think if trying to find again a local sales person, if not a leader that's in your space, right? Or adjacent to your space as soon as possible. Um, they probably come with a handful of clients already that's willing to go and try a product simply because they have worked with your partner before. Get the good feedback, get the critical feedback, because US customers will tell you they love communicating, they love to talk, they will tell you what's wrong with your products. Then they will tell you what's great about your products.
Mhm.
Often in South Africa, they
Hopefully
won't
not too
tell you really what's wrong. They will they're kind of like, no, it's looking well, it's going great, quite maybe really. But in the US, you're awesome, they will give it to you. And then start spending the big money on products. Don't try to sell fancy. Um, they don't buy fancy. They will try and write you a check. So so just start from the foundation, start from the beginning, and but don't worry, like in South Africa, it might take you 5 years, for example, 5 years to get a product market fit. If you start from the beginning, it might take you 6 months, right? Because the market is so much bigger, there's so much more voice, so much more plurality in terms of opinions, and you can learn pretty quickly. When they pay you, right? Don't run free pilot. When they pay you, then they know you have value, and go after revenue, and use that as a compass to product market fit. Uh, because I think
No,
that's
that's
the
great,
and
Greg. I
again,
think,
coming back to why
yeah.
I wanted to be in the US, that's kind of where you want to do, but often I forget, and people forget, I suppose. The revenue is important.
Mm. No, I think that's very useful to anyone listening that's trying to get into the US. It's a it's a common theme of struggling once you get over there. So I think those are very helpful tips to anyone starting a company and trying to do it. Greg, and tell us more about Mobiz. What does the future hold? Where do you see the market going? What's next for you and the company?
Yeah, I think we are, we've our US traction just surpassed our South African traction a couple of months ago. So it's kind of a turning point for us. Now we always knew that's gonna come soon, sooner or later. But I think the exciting thing is that we can kind of move ahead as a business to now feel that the where we've placed our focus is not becoming that's also become supportive of what we want to do globally. And I think the exciting space is that we've tried these things, right? Tried from using a lot of South African resources. A bulk of our engineers are based in South Africa, our customer success in South Africa, a big chunk of our sales team in South Africa as well. Um, and not everything has worked out the way we think it is. Just being cheaper doesn't mean it's more cost effective. And so we had to tweak a lot of things to make sure that that the product it works well, the product sells in the US. Again, we have our content executives all based in Pennsylvania because they know how to close deals where South Africa can pass prospects. So finding the combination of things, trying it out and seeing it work, and now we at a stage where we want to scale that. So that's kind of where we, in the immediate future, that okay, we see this 0 to 10 works. Let's see if we can get from 10 to 100. So from a go-to-market perspective, that's quite exciting for us, and that's what we kind of looking forward to. I'm sure our investors have been waiting for that for a good couple of years. I'm sure they're getting really impatient. So it's good that we've seen some results. And I know this is kind of cheesy, but I think we're really excited about AI. We in the game of personalization, and personalization is always been about meeting data and expectations. And that usually require them. If you're a good marketer, you can use the good data to meet to customer expectation. But if you weren't a good marketer, which most SMBs weren't, and then you weren't able to connect those dots properly. And us as a platform, we're uniquely great at slightly being a bit hubristic and slightly great at really collecting first party data more than any other CRMs and CDPs, simply because the way our platform was built is to create billions of individual microsites, where one was served per customer per campaign, meaning all data is first party, and first party data is uniquely awesome for AI to train AI, then to build those models to help marketers or SMBs with those assumptions. So the combination of having a scalable go-to-market motion plus knowing how we can really accelerate a product roadmap from a 5 year to a 3 month is what's gets me going during the day, and also seeing the US kind of catching up to the rest of the world regarding applications of person messaging. RCS is now going to really take off. More and more people using WhatsApp as well. But us adopting those channels means that if we do well in the US, then we can scale globally. Because one thing about text marketing or SMS that it was difficult to scale because you had to work with different carriers from different places, and everyone had different rules. Because it's quite an old technology. It's been around for 25 years, right? So now the whole application to person going into the over the air realm completely is where we kind of feel like, okay, cool. Let's build the AI. let's scale the go-to-market team. And now the product infrastructure and the macros of where these things land can go from US to global without having to set up different offices and different localizations. It just sounds really exciting to us, kind of the next 3 to 5 year plan.
Absolutely. So is that, if I may, is that the goal to try and really increase the size of the business in the US and then expand globally, or have you got a more nuanced approach?
Yeah, I mean, we want to have the product development and kind of the IP intellectual property building elements to be in the US. I think this is the best place to do that because you get again coming back that feedback is there. Um, it's kind of like when we grew up with American media, right? It's like that. We always consume American media, American products, and so once so I think the US is the best place to really build your product and your thinking innovation on product and go to market. What really is also exciting is that operationally we can scale that out in South Africa, right? You can have great place to build a big call center to really train up uh, marketing individuals, customer success individuals, and a very efficient back office. Obviously, there's a lot of information transfer that's required, but I think that's what you need to build to be global, especially from a resource perspective. I don't think it's scalable to build all resources from the US, and we see that from the US. They are trying to build resources out, outwards. But where we think that we have an upper hand is that our home base is in Cape Town, so we don't need to learn how to scale this. It's in our DNA, and I think and South Africa, even though it's kind of in the southern part of the globe, it's pretty central if you think about reaching Southeast Asia, Europe, and in the US. Where if you had to be based in Asia, that time zone
Mhm.
just doesn't really work
Yeah,
across the world.
no, it's
So I
obviously
think
no way.
being in Europe and South Africa, there is this benefit of doing that. Yeah.
Mhm. No, brilliant, Greg. Thank you very much. I think we can wrap it there. But I really appreciate you coming on, telling us about Mobiz, and I'm very excited to see how things keep growing for you. I've got no doubt it's going to be incredibly successful, and we'd love to have you back on to chat again and see how things are going in the next 12 months or so.
Awesome. Thanks for having me and to give me this opportunity to share my story.
Thank you, Greg.